Stop everything and do not scroll past this moment because what you are about to witness is not just a rehearsal gone wrong. It is the exact second reality broke through the script and changed everything between Soo Kai and Tan Songyun. And if you stay with this until the very end, you're going to understand why what happened on that set was not acting. It was something far more real. It began like any other day. Lights positioned perfectly. Cameras ready. Crew members moving with quiet precision. Everything exactly as it should be. The scene was simple, emotional but controlled. Lines memorized. Movements rehearsed. Nothing unexpected. Nothing out of place. Soo Kai stood in position. Focused. Calm. Every expression measured the way it always was. Because that was his strength. Control. Consistency. The ability to stay within the moment without letting it take over. Tan Songyun stepped into the scene. Her presence soft but steady. Her expression unreadable in a way that made people pay attention without knowing why. The director gave the signal. The scene began. At first, everything followed the script. Every line delivered exactly as expected. Every pause timed perfectly. Every movement precise. But then something shifted. Not suddenly. Not dramatically. But enough to be felt. Tan Songyun hesitated. Just slightly. Just enough to break the rhythm. Soo Kai noticed. Of course he did. He always noticed. But he stayed in character. Because that is what professionals do. They adapt. They continue. They hold the moment together. She looked at him. Not like a co-star. Not like someone following a script. But like someone standing in front of a truth. And then she said it. Not the line that was written. Not the words that were expected. Something else. Something real. She told him she was pregnant. The room froze. Not loudly. Not with chaos. But with a silence so complete it felt unreal. The kind of silence that does not belong on a film set. Because film sets are controlled. Predictable. Designed. This was none of those things. Soo Kai did not respond immediately. He could not. Because for a moment there was no script to follow. No direction to rely on. No role to hide behind. Only the weight of what had just been said. His expression changed. Not in a way that could be rehearsed. Not in a way that could be performed. But in a way that revealed everything. Confusion. Shock. Something deeper that could not be named instantly. The cameras kept rolling. No one called cut. Because no one knew if they should. Tan Songyun did not look away. She held his gaze. Not forcing a reaction. Not demanding anything. Just waiting. As if this moment needed to exist exactly as it was. Unfiltered. Uncontrolled. Soo Kai took a step back. Not dramatically. But enough to show that the ground beneath him had shifted. His voice, when it came, was not steady. Not controlled. Not anything like the voice people were used to hearing from him. He asked her if she was serious. Simple words. But carrying everything. Because sometimes the simplest questions hold the most weight. She nodded. No hesitation. No attempt to soften it. Just the truth. The kind that cannot be taken back once it is spoken. The crew remained still. Not out of confusion. But out of respect for something they understood was no longer part of the scene. This was not acting anymore. This was real. Soo Kai ran a hand through his hair. A small gesture, but one that said more than words could. He tried to speak again, but the words did not come easily. Because this was not a moment that could be handled with rehearsed responses. This was something else entirely. Something personal. Something unexpected. Something that changed everything in an instant. Tan Songyun's expression softened slightly. Not into comfort, but into something closer to understanding. As if she knew exactly what this moment was doing to him. As if she had expected it. The silence stretched. Long enough to feel. Long enough to matter. And then he said something that no one expected. He asked her why she told him like this. Not accusing. Not angry. Just trying to understand. Because the way something is said can change everything about how it is received. She answered quietly, saying there was no perfect way. No right moment. No safe space. Only the truth. And the truth does not wait for comfort. That answer settled into the room, not heavily, but deeply, because it was something everyone understood, even if they did not say it. Su Kai looked at her again, not with the same shock as before, but with something more complex, something that mixed emotion with realization. Because in that moment, he was no longer reacting to the surprise. He was processing what it meant. For her, for him, for everything that existed between them. The director finally called cut. But the word felt almost unnecessary, because whatever had happened could not be undone. It could not be edited. It could not be replaced. It had already become something permanent. The set slowly came back to life, but differently, quieter, more aware, as if everyone had witnessed something they were not meant to see. Su Kai stepped away, not to leave, but to gather himself, to find a moment where he could think without the weight of everything pressing in at once. Tan Songyun remained where she was for a second longer, then turned away, not avoiding, not escaping, but allowing the moment to settle. Because moments like that do not end immediately. They stay. They echo. They change everything that comes after. The story does not end with an answer. It does not end with resolution. Because real moments rarely do. It ends with something far more powerful. A shift. The kind that changes how people see each other. The kind that cannot be undone. And now the only question that remains is this. When the truth breaks through at the most unexpected moment and changes everything you thought you understood, do you hold on to what existed before? Or do you face what it has become? If this moment made you feel something real and you want to see what happens next, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who understands that the most powerful stories are not the ones written in scripts. They're the ones that happen when the script disappears. The moment the director called cut, it should have ended there, just another scene paused and reset, but nothing about what had just happened felt like something that could be reset, and if you stay with this until the very end, you are going to understand why what followed between Su Kai and Tan Songyun was not about returning to normal, it was about facing something that had already changed everything. For a few seconds, no one moved. The crew remained exactly where they were. Not because they did not know what to do, but because they understood that stepping in too quickly might break something that needed to settle. Su Kai stood still, not frozen, but grounded in a moment he had not prepared for. His expression no longer carried the shock from before. It carried something quieter, something deeper, a realization that this was not just unexpected. It was real. He walked off the mark slowly, not rushing, not avoiding, just needing space to think, to breathe, to understand what he had just heard. Tan Songyun remained where she was for a moment longer, her posture steady, her expression calm in a way that suggested she had already faced this moment long before it happened. When she finally moved, it was not to follow him. It was to give him the space he needed. Because sometimes the most important thing you can do is not chase a reaction. It is allow it to exist. Behind the set, away from the lights and cameras, Su Kai leaned against the wall, his thoughts moving faster than his words ever could, every detail replaying, not just what she said, but how she said it, the certainty, the calm, the absence of hesitation. And that was what stayed with him, because hesitation can be questioned, but certainty cannot. He closed his eyes for a second, not to escape, but to focus, to find clarity in a moment that felt overwhelming. When he opened them again, he was no longer just reacting. He was deciding. Tan Songyun found him shortly after. Not immediately, not urgently, but at the right moment, when the initial shock had passed enough for something real to be said. They stood facing each other, not as co-stars, not as performers, but as two people standing in front of something that could not be ignored. Su Kai spoke first, not asking if it was true, not questioning what she said, but asking why she chose that moment. Because timing matters, even when truth does not wait. Tan Songyun answered without hesitation. She told him there was no perfect moment, no safe way to say it, no place where it would feel easier. Because the truth does not become lighter with delay. It only becomes heavier. And she did not want that weight to grow any further. That answer did not resolve everything, but it made something clear. This was not impulsive. This was not accidental. This was intentional. Su Kai nodded slowly, not in agreement, but in understanding. Because even when things are difficult, understanding changes how they are carried. He asked her another question, not about the situation itself, but about what it meant. Not for the public, not for the story they were filming, but for them. Tan Songyun paused this time. Not because she did not know the answer, but because she knew the answer mattered. She told him it meant everything was different now. Not broken, not finished, but changed. And change requires choice. The silence that followed was not uncomfortable. It was necessary, because this was the moment where everything needed to be decided. Not rushed, not forced, but faced. Su Kai took a step closer. Not dramatically, not urgently, just enough to show that he was still there, still willing to stand in that moment. He told her something simple, that no matter how unexpected it was, he would not run from it. Not from her, not from what she had shared. Because some moments define who you are. And this was one of them. Tan Songyun looked at him carefully, not searching for the perfect response, but observing, trying to understand whether what he said would hold over time. Because words can be powerful, but only if they are followed by action. Days passed. The set resumed. Scenes continued. But everything felt different. Not in a way that disrupted the work, but in a way that deepened it. Because now there was something real beneath every interaction. Something that could not be ignored. Su Kai became quieter, more focused, not distant, but intentional. Every word measured, every action thoughtful. Tan Songyun remained steady, as she always had been. But there was a softness in her presence now. Not weakness, but openness. As if she had allowed something to be seen that she could not take back. The final moment came quietly, after a long day of filming, when the set had emptied, when the noise had faded, when there was nothing left to distract from what needed to be said. They stood together again. No cameras, no script, no expectations, just the truth. Su Kai looked at her, not with confusion, not with shock, but with clarity. He told her he had thought about everything, not just what she said, but what it meant. And he had made a decision. He would not pretend nothing had changed. He would not try to return to what existed before, because that was no longer possible. Instead, he would move forward with her, whatever that meant, whatever it required. Because some moments are not meant to be undone. They are meant to be accepted. Tan Songyun listened, not interrupting, not reacting immediately, because this was not about quick answers. This was about something that needed to be real. She told him she did not expect everything to be figured out immediately. She did not expect certainty. She only expected honesty, consistency, and the willingness to stay, even when things were difficult. Su Kai nodded, not promising perfection, but promising presence. And sometimes that is enough. The story does not end with everything resolved. It does not end with a perfect outcome. It ends with something far more real. A decision. To face what has changed. To move forward without pretending nothing happened. To accept that some moments do not break everything. They redefine it. And now the only question that remains is this. When life changes in a way you never expected and everything becomes uncertain, do you step back to protect yourself? Or do you step forward and face it? If this continuation made you feel something real and you want to see what happens next, make sure you subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who understands that the most powerful stories are not the ones planned. They're the ones that happen when everything changes and people choose what comes next.